Hi, my name's Evan Unti from Deschutes Angler Fly Shop, and today I wanted to talk about some dry dropper fishing, looking at a particular piece of water. What we're looking at right here is real classic Deschutes style pocket water. We have a lot of conflicting currents. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 tongues plus the outside seam. And in between those tongues, you've got a lot of swirling eddy currents. This makes it a very challenging piece of water to fish. But we know that fish live here because it's really classic looking trout water. But we need to get a good presentation in this kind of water. And that's where a Euro rod with a Euro leader and a dry dropper setup is really going to excel in this kind of water. I'm going to be able to put the flies, both the dry and the dropper, into the very particular currents while keeping the line, leader, and everything else out of all the conflicting currents, which is going to allow me to get just beautiful drifts through pretty erratic, wild water that would otherwise be very, very difficult with the traditional fly rod. Traditional fly rod, traditional leader, dry dropper rig, it'd be very difficult to navigate all these conflicting currents. The heavy leader coupled with the fly line is going to catch one of the various currents that are out here, and it's going to create drag on the fly. Using this setup, I'm going to put that fly right out there, keep everything off the water, let my flies move just through the current that I want them to move, and all of the conflicting currents that are around it are not going to interfere with the drift. So, we want to take a good look at this water and try to assess the best way to approach it. You can see that we've got tongues coming between the boulder breaks with a very defined currents. In between those boulder breaks, we've got various soft currents, and up towards the head, we've got some eddy currents up in there. The most likely place for the trout to be is going to be either right in the tongue or just slightly left or right on that edge of the tongue, because that's where all the main food is going. It's pretty unlikely for one to be sitting up in those eddy currents at the top, but they could be sitting in the soft currents as everything starts to fan out and come together. You can approach it a couple ways. You can start inside, start inside and work out, or start outside and work in. Typically I like to start outside and work my way in, primarily because the fish is typically going to want to run out. They don't usually want to run in. So if I hook one on this inside current and he runs out, he's going to go blasting through all the fish that are in this other current out here. And so I'm going to start on the outside and work my way over. I'm typically going to focus on the main tongues to start with. So I'm going to put several drifts through the main tongue, then right along the edge of the tongue, and maybe just a couple drifts on the soft stuff in between. I don't expect them to be in there as much. And then I'll do the same thing on the next tongue, and so on and so forth, all the way over to the inside. So my first cast is going to be into the main tongue. Let that drift through. Now you can see one big advantage is I have nothing but the fly riding on top of the current here. I have no fly line or leader really interfering with the drift. So I'm able to control my fly and drift it very naturally through a wide variety of conflicting currents. If I'm in the main tongue, I don't have to worry about my fly being pulled by the eddy currents because I have nothing affecting the drift. The eddy currents have no impact on that. And vice versa, if I want to go into the eddy current, I can hold my rod tip up and I have nothing pulling my fly into that heavy current. You can see how nice and slow my fly is moving through that nice soft water. The cool thing about this dry dropper rig on the Euro setup is that I'm quickly back out fishing. I cover that seam, one little flick, and back out fishing, cover the next seam, and I can just quickly move over and over, and there's a fish. Nice one too. Took the dropper right in that main tongue there. Pretty much where I would expect him to be. Took the dropper. Off you go, buddy. All right, now we're going to focus on the far outside of these pockets. I kind of focused on this, I worked outside in on the sort of inside pockets because I know stepping out is going to create a lot of ruckus and disturb any fish in here. And now I'm going to kind of focus on this far outside. And these far outsides are really good spots to focus on, particularly where you have these really heavy currents meeting this significantly slower current. All the food is getting pushed and caught right in that current seam right there. So it's a great spot for a fish to feed, whether they're eating dry flies or nymphs. It's a great spot for them to hold on. And then we got these nice little soft pockets in between, kind of between me and that fast current. And there's some nice big rocks. You got the big pointy rock, and just below the pointy rock in the water, we have another rock right here. A great holding lie for a fish to hang out and eat. Again, the biggest advantage here using this setup is I'm going to be able to fish all this water with very little disturbance in the drift. I got nothing to pull the drift one way or the other. 2 flies, very, very light tippets, and that is the only thing touching the water. So I'm typically going to start on this outside edge, right on that edge between the fast and the heavy water. Ooh, got a hit right away. Didn't stick, but that's all right. And it's worth a couple of drifts, especially after you get a hit. And you can see how quickly I can pick up, reposition my fly, and boom, I'm back out fishing again, which is a huge advantage as opposed to having to false cast and get the line repositioned. All right, so several drifts on that outside. I got one little bump that didn't stick. So now I'm going to try this little pocket right behind this pyramid rock here, where it's even a little softer. I want to get it so that the drift lands well above the rock that the fish would be most likely to be sitting in front of. You can see how nice and slow that's moving through there, and all those fast currents are not influencing the drift at all. Just a nice, super, super slow drift right through that pocket. No lookers yet. All right. Now I'm going to try this inside, just to the right of the pyramid rock in this little bit faster current. Oh, there was a hit. Right down that current seam. More drift in there. All right, well, I've covered all those pockets. I had a couple hits. Nobody stuck, but that's all right. We're going to just go ahead and move up into the next set of pockets and approach it exactly the same way. All right, so we pretty effectively covered these pockets. We covered all the main current seams plus the soft stuff in between. And hopefully you were able to see how effective using a Euro nymph rod, leader, and setup with a dry dropper rig was. Watching how the dry and the nymph were able to move through the currents without having the conflicting currents really influence the drift. It's a great way to fish, super efficient. The fly is back in the water quickly, and where you can quickly cover all the water in front of us, getting beautiful, perfect drifts. If you like this video, subscribe to our YouTube page. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Have a great day.